My name is Anaxagorou. I am a poet, a writer, a publisher, an educator. So in 2007, I got made redundant from the last job that I was at, and I had difficulty finding other work. So from that point, I kind of asked myself, what's the one thing that I've always enjoyed doing, or what's the one thing that I don't know is time? Because time, when you do jobs that you don't like, you're fully conscious of time. When is this going to end? When can I go home? So I kind of worked out the one thing where time was non-existent, and it was only when I was writing that I never noticed time. Like I could just sit and write and not be conscious of it at all. Yeah, I think it was at the time in my life. I'd never actually won anything ever. I came from a secondary school that I had difficulty with. It was very academic and it didn't really have any output for creativity, so I became really frustrated very quickly, and I was in all the bottom sets. I was underachieving in everything. My predictions for GCSEs were all very low. And when it was called the London Maze Respect Slam at the time in 2002, and when my mum picked up a pamphlet that said to enter a poem about respect, and that's essentially what I did. I wrote this poem, and then I actually came here to the Poetry Cafe in Covent Garden, and I read it to Joelle Taylor, and from the way that she responded to it, no one had ever, I don't think ever in my life actually, been that encouraging about something that I'd made, and it just gave me a lot of hope, a lot of confidence, a lot of belief, and I think interest, like sparked an interest in writing, because you become interested in things that people say you're good at when you're young anyway. So I just wanted to kind of pursue it a little bit more, and I did, and I went on and I did, a year or two. She was mentoring me, and a few of the other poets at the time who worked with the Poetry Society were helping me to kind of refine the writing, showing me little ways in which, because I was writing really long kind of streams of consciousness, there was no real form to it, no structure, it was just this outpouring of emotion. The biggest challenge is first of all, how do you sell poetry? Second of all, how do you sustain yourself? How do you make a living? What is poetry? Do you write books? No one buys, but poetry books are the hardest things to sell in the publishing world. So you've got a lot of things, a lot of odds that are stacked up against you. For me, it was really about reading. I think reading poetry was the key factor in being able to progress, because when you read, you're able to see things that you like, you're able to see things that you don't like, and ask yourself, why aren't you connecting with this poem? Why are you connecting with that? And you learn a lot about the creative process, the writing process, the editing process through that. So that was one of finding your voice, finding a style of writing, a poetic that suited you, that you felt comfortable working around, was probably the most difficult. Then once you find that and you're able to create a live space to deliver that poem, a communicative space, then it all becomes very very interesting, especially from the poet's and the author's perspective. And then once you do that, then it's about sustaining it until the point where enough people know about you, where they're saying, can you come and read here, can you come and do this here? You get invited into schools, then you put workshops together. I put programs together for kids who, like myself, struggled with English, struggled with self-esteem, with confidence, and you kind of try and engage them and inspire them to pick up the pen and to write about things that are important to them and things that are reoccurring in their lives that they might not necessarily want to talk about. How they can combat being taken seriously is by essentially either starting their own poetry societies, their own clubs, their own nights, and which a lot of universities do. Every university has a poetry society or a literary society that kind of puts on nights, and to read their poems, to put their poems online, and to be confident in what it is to believe in what it is that they're writing and the necessity of the writing. I think that's an important part. Is we're vehicles of communication, and we act as entities that can capture and preserve particular moment, and that is what one of art's functions is, to do that, is to comment on something, make an expressional comment on something, and then to bring it back in to the time in which, the context in which that poem's been taken.
You're a machine rummaging the bins for a paper god, searching for yourself in the ripples of sulphuric rivers, of torn celebrity ambitious blades, slicing tongues and words, slaughtering language and laugh, shadows, eaten by brick and mortar.